On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Ross Perot, the outspoken billionaire businessman and two-time independent presidential candidate, died on July 9, 2019, at the age of 89 after a battle with leukemia. His death was natural, the quiet conclusion to a life marked by bold defiance of political convention and deep-rooted patriotism. In an age when American politics was increasingly polarized between two dominant parties, Perot emerged as a symbol of a restless electorate, one searching for practical solutions and straight talk over party loyalty. Perot's passing occurred in a political climate not unlike the one he once disrupted. His 1992 presidential campaign, run as an independent, shocked the political establishment. Capturing nearly 19% of the popular vote, he siphoned support from both major parties and showed that large swaths of Americans were disenchanted with the status quo. His emphasis on reducing the national debt, advocating for veterans, and criticizing free trade agreements like NAFTA reflected the economic anxiety of the early 90s, concerns that would only intensify in later decades. Though he never held office, the immediate consequence of Perot's political rise was a jolt to the system. His use of television infomercials to deliver policy-heavy messages was both novel and effective. After his death, commentators revisited his legacy as a populist trailblazer whose success foreshadowed the rise of outsider candidates in the 21st century. His independent campaigns laid the groundwork for future third-party and populist movements, and many of his warnings about debt and trade have become central topics in modern political discourse. Perot's death amplified his legend as a maverick businessman who dared to take on the political elite. A decorated Navy veteran and founder of electronic data systems, he personified the American dream. But more than that, he challenged Americans to think critically about leadership, responsibility, and the future of their democracy. His life and death reveal much about our relationship with power and memory. We remember leaders not only for their victories, but for their courage to speak out. Perot is immortalized through biographies, documentaries, and in the national memory as the little Texan with big charts and a bigger voice. His passing reminds us that disruption, even when imperfect, can reshape political possibilities, and that sometimes the most lasting legacies are left by those who never held office but held firm in their convictions. Alice Paul, a pioneering American suffragist and relentless advocate for gender equality, died of natural causes on July 9, 1977, at the age of 92 in Moorestown, New Jersey. Her death marked the end of a life lived with extraordinary purpose, a woman whose unwavering commitment to women's rights reshaped the fabric of American democracy. Paul's passing occurred during the second wave of feminism, a movement she had helped lay the foundation for decades earlier. Though she died peacefully, her life had been anything but quiet. In the early 20th century, she had been jailed, force-fed, and publicly vilified for leading protests that demanded the right to vote for women. Her methods, nonviolent but confrontational, were revolutionary for their time and challenged both political and societal norms about women's roles. The immediate consequences of her death were felt primarily among feminist circles, where she was remembered as a tireless warrior who had been largely overlooked by mainstream historical narratives. Her most enduring achievement, the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1920, granted American women the right to vote. Yet even after that victory, Paul continued her fight, drafting the Equal Rights Amendment, ERA, in 1923, a bold initiative that would become the cornerstone of gender equality advocacy for the next century. Her death did not shift the trajectory of history in the way an assassination or sudden tragedy might, but it did prompt a re-examination of her impact. Feminist historians and activists began to reclaim her story, recognizing her as a bridge between the suffragists of the early 20th century and the feminist leaders of the 1960s and 70s. Her legacy grew stronger posthumously, as her vision for constitutional gender equality remained unfulfilled, keeping her name alive in political debates and courtroom arguments. Alice Paul's death reminds us how societal change is often driven by those willing to sacrifice comfort for conviction. In death, as in life, she represented the enduring struggle for justice and equality. Today, she is immortalized in biographies, documentaries, historical landmarks like the Belmont Paul Women's Equality National Monument and ongoing efforts to ratify the ERA. Her story speaks to the human desire not just to live, but to leave the world more just than we found it. In honoring Alice Paul, we honor the power of persistence and the belief that equality is not a gift, it is a right worth fighting for. Rod Steiger, the Oscar-winning American actor known for his intense, deeply human performances, died of pneumonia and kidney failure on July 9, 2002, at the age of 77 in Los Angeles. His death, due to natural causes, marked the end of a prolific career that spanned over 5 decades and mirrored the complex evolution of American cinema, from post-war optimism to social realism and psychological depth. Steiger's career was defined by characters that often wrestled with morality, identity, and societal expectations. His role as police chief Bill Gillespie in the Heat of the Night, 1967, which earned him an Academy Award, was particularly emblematic of his era. The film confronted racism head-on at the height of the civil rights movement, and Steiger's portrayal of a bigoted Southern cop who gradually changes reflects the internal struggles many Americans faced during a period of social upheaval. His passing came at a time when conversations around race, representation, and authenticity in media were again gaining momentum, serving as a reminder of the enduring relevance of such roles. The immediate response to his death was one of reverence. While not a household name to younger generations, Steiger remained a respected figure among peers and cinephiles. His willingness to portray flawed, deeply human characters helped reshape Hollywood's narrative conventions, paving the way for more nuanced storytelling. His death invited renewed appreciation for method acting, a technique he mastered under the tutelage of the Actors Studio, and highlighted a generation of performers who prioritized emotional authenticity over glamour. Steiger's death did not shift the course of history, but it did prompt reflection on a golden era of American film where actors were political, passionate, and bold in their artistic choices. His legacy endures not in scandal or spectacle, but in the layered, often uncomfortable truths he brought to the screen. Rod Steiger's passing speaks to our collective relationship with mortality and memory. While fame can be fleeting, artistry endures. We remember him through the lens of cinema, his characters preserved in celluloid, his performances studied in acting schools, and his impact felt in every role that dares to confront the uncomfortable realities of the human experience. In this way, we do not just remember Steiger, we continue to feel his presence, echoing through the stories he helped bring to life. Isabelle Sanford, best known for her iconic role as Louise Wheezy Jefferson on The Jeffersons, passed away on July 9, 2004 at the age of 86 due to natural causes. She died at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, having been hospitalized a few days earlier for preventive surgery. Her passing marked the end of a trailblazing career that broke barriers in American television, especially for African American women in lead roles. Sanford's death came at a time when television was beginning to reckon more openly with issues of representation and legacy. Having become the first African-American woman to win a Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series, 1981, Sanford's achievements highlighted both how far the industry had come and how far it still had to go. Her portrayal of Louise Jefferson, a character both dignified and sharp-witted, reflected the aspirations and challenges of many Black Americans navigating upward mobility in a still divided society. The immediate aftermath of Sanford's death was marked by warm tributes from co-stars, fans, and networks. Sherman Hemsley, who played her on-screen husband, George Jefferson, described her as both a consummate professional and a deeply compassionate friend. The entertainment community recognized her as a pioneer, someone who had used humor and grace to navigate a system historically resistant to change. Her passing prompted reflections on how television had shaped cultural perceptions of race, gender, and class in the 20th century. Though her death did not shift the trajectory of history in the grand sense, it amplified her legacy. She became emblematic of a period in which Black voices were slowly but powerfully entering mainstream narratives. The reruns of The Jeffersons surged in popularity in the weeks following her death, and her name re-entered public discourse as younger generations discovered her work. Isabelle Sanford's life and death reveal the subtle power of representation and the importance of everyday cultural heroes. She was not a ruler, a revolutionary, or a general, but she was a mirror to millions, reflecting dignity, humor, and strength. We remember her not through monuments or state ceremonies, but through the living art of television. In each episode, each laugh track, each heartfelt moment, Sanford continues to speak, reminding us that influence is not always born in grandeur, but in authenticity. Rip Torn, a versatile actor known for his intense presence on stage and screen, died on July 9, 2019, at the age of 88. He passed away peacefully at his home in Lakeville, Connecticut, surrounded by his family. His death from natural causes marked the end of a career that spanned over 6 decades, during which he navigated the shifting landscape of American entertainment with both volatility and brilliance. Torn's death reflected a generational shift in Hollywood, where the archetype of the difficult but magnetic actor had once been a hallmark. In the mid to late 20th century, actors like Torn embodied a raw, unfiltered approach to their craft, mirroring a broader cultural embrace of realism and psychological depth in storytelling. Torn's persona, often unpredictable and intense, fit the rebellious spirit of 1960s and 70s cinema, a period that challenged authority and conventional morality. His celebrated role in The Larry Sanders Show, for which he won an Emmy, and his late career turn as the gruff Zed in Men in Black, showcased his ability to evolve while remaining true to his fiercely original energy. The immediate aftermath of his death brought tributes from across the entertainment industry. Colleagues remembered Torn as both brilliant and mercurial, a man whose performances carried a weight of authenticity that few could match. His passing prompted retrospectives that reintroduced audiences to his work in films like Cross Creek and Defending Your Life, as well as his early-stage performances under the guidance of Elia Kazan. While Torn's death didn't create cultural shockwaves in the same way as a political figure or global celebrity, it did serve to amplify his legend. For many, he represented the last vestiges of a bygone era in acting, where emotional risk, rather than celebrity polish, defined the artist. His legacy stands not in global influence, but in the deep impact he left on American theater and television and on a generation of performers who followed his example of fearlessness. In death, Rip Torn reminds us that legacy is often shaped not by perfection, but by intensity and commitment to craft. We honor such figures through film retrospectives, awards, tributes, and in the lasting echo of scenes that still resonate. His life and passing invite reflection on how art outlives the artist, and how character, in all its flaws and glory, becomes immortal through performance. Eileen Ford, co-founder of the iconic Ford modeling agency, passed away on July 9, 2014, at the age of 92, from complications of meningitis. Her death marked the end of an era in the fashion industry, where she had redefined beauty standards and transformed modeling into a legitimate and powerful profession. Ford's passing, while natural and peaceful, highlighted the shifting landscape of media, beauty, and female agency in both the 20th and 21st centuries. During a time when women's roles in business were limited and often dismissed, Eileen Ford emerged as a commanding force. Beginning in the 1940s, she shaped the modern modeling industry by applying rigorous standards, professional contracts, and an almost maternal control over her models' careers and lives. She wasn't just an agent, she was a cultural architect. Ford introduced the world to supermodels like Lauren Hutton, Christy Brinkley, and Jerry Hall, and in doing so redefined global ideals of glamour and femininity. The death of Eileen Ford reflected the slow transition away from a highly centralized fashion world dominated by elite agencies and print media. By 2014, Instagram and digital platforms had already begun reshaping how beauty and influence were distributed. Her passing thus underscored a generational shift, from a tightly curated model of success to a democratized digital one. Yet, her legacy remains intact. The professionalism, structure, and prestige she brought to the modeling world set the standard that even today's influencers still strive toward. In the immediate aftermath of her death, tributes poured in from across the fashion and entertainment industries. Figures who had worked with her or been influenced by her leadership recalled a woman of fierce discipline, formidable intelligence, and a shrewd understanding of cultural trends. Unlike the dramatic deaths that shocked the public, Ford's quiet departure invited reflection, not only on her contributions, but on the passage of time and the evolution of beauty and power. Eileen Ford's legacy is preserved in the images of the women she championed and the structure of the modeling industry she built. Her name endures in documentaries, biographies, and retrospectives on fashion history. Her death reminds us that power isn't always loud or violent. Sometimes it's built in offices, on phone calls, and in contracts, and it lives on in the standards we inherit and the industries we continue to shape. Vanetta McGee, an influential actress who carved a unique space for Black women in Hollywood during the 1970s, died of cardiac arrest on July 9, 2010, at the age of 65. Her death, though from natural causes, marked the quiet exit of a trailblazer who helped redefine Black representation in American cinema during a time of both cultural awakening and persistent racial struggle. Rising to prominence during the Blaxploitation era, McGee starred in films such as Blackula, Shaft in Africa, and Thomasine and Bushrod. Yet she was never content to be boxed into the limiting roles often offered to African American performers. Her on-screen presence was marked by intelligence, elegance, and a quiet intensity that challenged the stereotypes of her time. Her death, though not a national media spectacle, illuminated how many pioneering Black actresses had been underappreciated during their careers and even in their passings. McGee's era was one of radical shifts, civil rights gains in law, but enduring barriers in culture and opportunity. Her insistence on portraying complex, empowered women in an industry dominated by white narratives reflected a broader demand for equity and authenticity. In interviews, she openly critiqued the marginalization of Black artists, revealing the tension between creative expression and institutional racism. That she managed to secure critical and popular roles despite these barriers is a testament to both her talent and perseverance. The immediate response to her death was quiet but reverent, with tributes from colleagues and film historians who acknowledged her impact. Unlike some contemporaries whose lives ended in tragedy or scandal, McGee's passing invited reflection rather than sensationalism. It underscored how easily women of color can be erased from the mainstream narrative, even when their contributions are foundational. Vanetta McGee's legacy endures in the continued push for diversity in Hollywood and the reevaluation of the blaxploitation movement, not as mere genre fare, but as a moment of agency for Black storytelling. Her image and influence live on in retrospectives, film archives, and the broader movement to preserve Black cinematic history. In remembering her, we confront how fame and memory are shaped not only by talent, but by systems of visibility, and how honoring the overlooked can help complete our cultural record.